Hi, welcome to Marysville Getsville Charger Chat. I'm here with Livy, who's a rhythmic gymnastics coach, and this is Cheyenne.
Hi.
All right, so what is it that you do and where do you work at?
I coach rhythmic gymnastics at Rising Stars Gymnastics in Marysville, and it's basically like a mixture of dance and regular gymnastics. So normally people hear about artistic, which is bars, beam, floor, and vault, but rhythmic is a mix of dance, contortion, and acrobatics, along with using the ribbon, ball, rope, hula hoop, and clubs, and yeah.
So I know Cheyenne did that for a little while.
Yeah.
So you must have been doing that for a while. How long have you been coaching?
I've been coaching since 2011, but I've been in the sport since I was 5, and then I competed all the way until I was 16. And then I started my team in 2011, the year after I graduated high school.
So can you tell us more about rhythmic gymnastics and what you do in the sport?
It's based off of ballet technique. It's a very critical part of the sport, and if you've ever watched it or seen it, the first thing you notice is the girls are incredibly flexible. Which takes a lot of training. A lot of people think, oh, I have to be flexible to do that, but actually like 99% of the gymnasts that start out come in with like average person flexibility, and it takes a lot of training and a lot of hours to get to that point. And then you have like a 1.5 minute routine that you do on a carpet, 42 foot by 42 foot carpet, and it's a lot of it, like if you aren't familiar with the sport, it just basically looks like a bunch of like dancing and twirling around and leaping and spinning and bending in half. But there's a lot more to the sport. It's takes the Olympic gymnasts are training 30 to 35 hours per week, and takes a lot of flexibility, strength. There you get to basically use the jump rope in lots of really weird, crazy ways. And then you use a ball. You can bounce it, toss it, roll it on your body, roll on the ball. There's a lot of really cool things. If you watch the higher levels, they toss it up and do a bunch of stuff underneath it and catch it with their foot or something crazy. And then they have hoop, which is basically looks like a hula hoop, but it's a little bit heavier and weighted differently. And same thing with that, they circle it, toss it, spin it around, do all that sort of stuff. Then we have ribbon, which is the most known part of rhythmic. That's what most people are like, oh, it's ribbon dancing, but that drives us crazy when people call it that. But the ribbon is actually the hardest event to learn because you're not allowed to. Obviously, you can't get it in a knot, which most of my gymnasts know how hard that is. And you also can't touch it to the floor in certain parts of the routine. You can't touch it to your body, things like that. It has to be moving. They count how many circles are in the pattern of the ribbon. And it's basically the one event that the most things could go wrong in that event. So it's a lot harder than it looks. And then we also have clubs, which are kind of look like bowling pins or like juggling pins. They're just weighted and sized differently, and that one is very similar to juggling. And there's a lot of really cool things that they do with the handling skills. And then let's see, what am I missing?
Ball?
Did we say? Yeah, we said ball.
There's floor.
Okay, so floor is basically for the lower levels. And that's basically, they don't have any equipment on their hands. So it's just dancing, contortion, acrobatics, that sort of thing, learning to connect with the music. Expression and musicality is a huge part of the score, which is much harder than it seems, and a lot of gymnasts actually struggle with that. They may look like they're performing it really well, but the judges are very picky on who they're going to give those points to. The whole system is, there's what's called the Federation of International Gymnastics, and they created a code of points. So it's literally a rule book, and every single thing is written down in this book based off of how much each thing is worth and what's required in each routine. and exactly how it needs to be executed. If it's not executed correctly, you don't get points for it, and you get an extra deduction on top of that. So that makes it very fair. People that judge have to go through this huge judging certification in order to judge. That way it's done fairly. And yeah, that's pretty much the sport all in one.
Well, coming from someone who's the least graceful and the least technical, that sounds like a lot of work.
It is, because a lot of people that come into it just like don't have any grace or anything, and it's probably the hardest thing to teach, is to be graceful and smooth and not awkward. But it's definitely something that you end up learning over a few years' time.
So I mean, for doing it that long, it's obviously something that you enjoy a lot.
Yes.
What are some things that you really think are rewarding that you get from it?
Well, from coaching, it's definitely seeing the girls grow and seeing them find their passion and something that they can work hard for, because it's definitely not easy. And to actually, the best part is seeing them not succeed right away, but to see them push through and not give up, and to have these goals, and when they reach these goals, it's not only exciting for them, but it's exceptionally exciting for me because I have to guide them there, but it's up to them to decide if they want to go there or not. And that's probably the most rewarding thing to see from coaching.
Getting to be there through like the whole process.
Yes, exactly. And it's also really, really cool to watch when you occasionally I'll get a gymnast that's had some sort of dance experience or something, so it's a little easier. But I've definitely had a large amount of kids that I started from the very beginning. They came in to me with no skills, no nothing, like not being able to touch their toes, like, and to be able to carry them through that process and see how much they've grown is pretty cool.
Well, we're going to continue talking, but in a second we're going to transition to a segment here called Tom Tom Tries Ballet. It's just going to make me cringe a lot. So, enjoy that.
I don't want to go to med school, Dad. I want to be a ballerina.
So when we're doing this, can we do that one more time again? One leg chases the second leg out of the way and is used as a connect.
Gotta get faster, stronger, graceful for Swan Lake.
Hi, welcome back to Marysville Getchell Charger Chat. We're still here with Libby, and we're going to continue on with this interview.
So I was wondering, what was your proudest moment as a coach?
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't think I could really pick one the proudest moment. I guess, it's hard to say because every gymnast kind of has their own journey through this. So they've all had their my proudest moments for each one of them. I can't single out one more than the other, but several of them have, let's see, I've had one gymnast that she scored the highest floor routine at state last year. And I've had moments where some of the other girls have scored incredibly high compared to the rest of the region. That's always exciting when they get in the top 5 of the region. Some of the moments just include, there's a couple of girls that have struggled with confidence when they're competing and they look very nervous, or they're just not sure of themselves. They have a lot of self-doubt. So seeing them overcome that, for instance, Cheyenne's little sister, who's also one of my gymnasts, this year she whenever she would get nervous in the past, she would let that negatively affect her at competition versus taking that challenge to push her to be better. So this season I told her that my goal for her was not about the scores, not about the placing or ranking or anything like that, but it was just to go out there and have a blast and to be confident and to let her nerves push her to be better. And we're 2 competitions into the season and she's already accomplished that. So that was, this makes me emotional, but it made me super proud because that was a huge step for her. And but they've all had very similar moments and different moments for each of them.
Yeah. So you mentioned my little sister Brooke, and one of her main problems was stretching properly. So how do you stretch kids without completely destroying them and so they don't get injured?
Well, there's a very specific process. It's something that I've learned over the years and from other coaches, and I've actually had some training with Cirque du Soleil contortionist trainers. And there's just everything is basically, you don't want to single out one area to stretch. You literally have to target every single muscle. And there's a certain way to do that. And a lot of the kids like to do it their way, the easy way, and that's not always the safe way. So I have to just be right on top of them and
literally sometimes.
Literally. Yes. And, sometimes we go through tears and it is not comfortable, but you get used to it over time and you pretty much actually get addicted to stretching to the point where you can't go a day without stretching. I even have a little 7-year-old girl who she cries every time I stretch her, and then 5 seconds later she's like, "Coach Libby, can you stretch me again?" It's crazy how you'll look at them like, oh, she's torturing them, but they love it. And it's a weird thing, but it makes you, it makes anybody, that's why so many people are into yoga and things like that, is because it just makes you feel better and get your endorphins going, and you feel healthier, you can move more. There's just so many advantages to it. But basically you just have to get on them and emphasize the importance of the proper way of doing it, and telling them these are the consequences if you don't do it this way, if you don't stretch both legs, if you don't stretch, even if you have one side that feels better, you still have to push the other side just as equally, because this is what could happen. Your hips could be out of line, you could have spine problems, when you're 25 you could be in a lot of pain, and if you don't do this correctly. So I just kind of drill it into them right from the very start, and they seem to catch on pretty quickly, and so far we've had some very healthy kids. And it's actually, research has been done and it's proven that if you stretch even in contortion, bend the back in half the proper way, you'll actually have a healthier back and less pain than the average adults. So that's pretty cool.
With all those positive experiences, do you have anything that you would say is primarily negative, or any experiences that you really wish you could have changed?
Absolutely. As a coach, I'm always learning to be a better coach. And one thing this year that we discovered was some of the girls weren't feeling like they were being pushed quite as much as they wanted to. And some of that had to do with they were going through some emotional things where they were not wanting to put the effort in. And sometimes that's kind of a placebo effect where it makes me feel like, oh, I want to push them, but why would I want to push them if they're not going to try? And so we had a big breakthrough when we finally sat down and communicated this. And there were definitely moments that I look back and I realize, oh, I could have probably done my job a little bit better. I could have pushed them a little harder. It's hard for me to sometimes see the girls, when they are in pain stretching or they're going through something rough. It's hard on me. I'm a very emotional person. So sometimes I have to say, Libby, no, you can't be soft right now. You need to be tough on them. And that's definitely something that I'm still working on. And that's probably the negative part that I've experienced so far.
And so you've had experiences with one of your gymnasts, Ashley. She ended up getting injured while stretching. So you've probably learned a lot about when to recognize an injury and when to recognize when they're just having stretching pain.
Yes, absolutely. As a coach, you have to learn, and this is a hard thing, is a lot of kids coming into this, they don't know the difference between different kinds of pains. They don't know what is a good pain and what is a bad pain. And it's really important that we communicate that, and that they know, this really hurts, and they need to make sure they tell me that. Some kids don't like to tell me because they're afraid to tell me, but I tell them, you have to tell me if this hurts. And there may be times where I'm like, look, this is normal. It's supposed to feel like that. And there's times where like, wait, that's not normal. So we need to fix something here. And she talked about Ashley. She had some other health issues that we actually did not know about until she started gymnastics. And so even though it made her retire early, she still was really thankful that we even started gymnastics, because she wouldn't have realized these were issues in her body until she was much older and they were more severe. So, we found out she had some hip issues, and there were some muscles that were incredibly weak that were causing her hips to pop out in the wrong direction. And one time it was several years ago, my very first year coaching, and I was stretching her, and we heard this loud pop, and it was the scariest thing we'd ever heard. And she had really pulled one of her hamstring muscles. And it was, at first I was terrified. I was like, oh my gosh, this is my fault. I'm never doing this stretch again. Come to find out, it was all because of the way her hips were built, that they were very vulnerable to these injuries. So we learned certain stretches to avoid with her, which would be totally healthy for anybody else. So if the girls ever complain about any sort of odd feeling or pain, I make sure that they get checked out immediately, because it's not something you want to push through. It will cause them to retire early, and we don't want that. So it's really important that they put their health first.
All right, and coming up, we're going to have a live demonstration of some of the stretches and cool stuff they do in rhythmic gymnastics. But before that, we're going to watch Seth HD.
I'm not as
I'm presidential. You're like the not even vice president. You're like, okay.
Dude, today someone told me I was the nicest person in the world and made my day.
Well, obviously they haven't met me, because I'm clearly the nicest person to ever be in existence.
Yeah, no. I honestly am the nicest person in this room, in this whole school, in the planet. Like, I'm nicer than you.
Well, remember the other day when I held the door open for like 3 minutes as you slowly walked through it? I was standing out there in the freezing cold.
Thanks, Zach. Oh yeah? Remember that time you forgot to do your homework, and so I offered to do it for you, and I did it, and then I gave it to you, and you got an A on your homework assignment?
Oh my gosh. I don't even understand this assignment or what it's about.
Did you even do the homework?
No, I'm so confused. Oh my gosh, Celine, check it out. I got an A.
You're welcome!
Well, remember that one time that you were just sick and tired of school one day? So I pulled the fire alarm for you.
I really don't want to be here today.
You know, there just might be something I could do to help with that.
Hi, this is Rihanna, and she's going to be doing a live demonstration of some of the cool stuff they do in rhythmic gymnastics. don't know about you, but that hurts to watch. All right, we're gonna.
How inflexible I am.
All right, we're gonna head to another segment now. Well, that was definitely interesting. How long does it take for someone to be able to build up that flexibility and skill?
Not long, surprisingly, actually. Rihanna's only been doing it for 3 years, and she came in with like no flexibility. So, believe it or not, she couldn't touch her toes, hardly, maybe fingertips. It took a lot of training and hours and hard work. She's actually one of my very hard workers on the team, so that wasn't too hard for her, I don't think. Yeah, it can take anywhere. I mean, we started seeing that probably a year into the training. Yeah. And that was, she started out with only 6 hours a week and went to 9 hours and then 13 and a half hours, and now she's at 15 and a half hours a week. So, and we've been seeing continual progress throughout that last 3 years.
So Rihanna does private lessons as well too.
Yes.
So what is like the benefit of doing that?
It's really, really good for when we start doing routines and they're learning that for competition, because I can take the time to clean them up and make them look better. When I have a class full of 9 to 15 kids, it's a little hard to get around to everyone. I always do, but they only get, a few minutes of my time one-on-one throughout a whole 4-hour practice. So it's really beneficial for that, and then it's also beneficial to target her weakness and areas that she really needs to work on.
Yeah. All right, so I think that finishes us up for today.
Do you have any last-minute words or advertisements, or how can people get in contact you if they're interested in this?
Well, we have, you can contact us through Facebook is probably the best way to contact us. I am always on the lookout for younger kids. It's much easier to start when you're young than when you're older, and as my older kids are graduating and finding their way out of my team, I need to have new little ones coming in. So if you have any little kids, you can contact me through Facebook. It's look for Rising Stars Rhythmics.
All right, thank you.
Well, thanks so much for coming in. Bye.
Bye.